It's time for Solutions for Seniors to Be, here on WATD. Here to help make your golden years golden, offering guidance on programs and services available to you and your loved ones in your retirement. Now, here's your host, Chris Shea.
I've been in the right place, but it must have been
Good morning. It's a wonderful Sunday here. Hopefully this is the right place and the right time, not the right place and the wrong time, as Dr. John sings. But I do love that song. The beat is so great. Brings me back to my time in New Orleans. Did a lot of moving in my younger years, and it also tends to be one of the things that is a question for one and all seniors. Should I stay in my home or should I go? And I know that for my parents, my mom was a realtor for 35 years out of Hanover. She insisted upon living in her home right up until the very end. And then after she actually passed away, I had to clean out 6 30-yard dumpsters worth of stuff that had just accumulated over the 30 years of my parents living in the home. Plus all this other stuff that I sold or gave away to Salvation Army. And it was a challenge. But there are options out there for people to be able to potentially move earlier than the very end and do different things. So I'd like to talk today to a person who I've known for a little bit of time now. His name is Leon Merian. He is an SRES certified real estate person. And I'm going to let him introduce himself, a little bit about who he is, his background, and talk about what an actual SRES is. So good morning. Good Sunday morning to you, Leon. How's things going?
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Yes, my name is Leon Merian. And I'd like to start off first that I am a full-time realtor with Compass. And I say full-time because it takes a full-time realtor, not a part-time situation, because it's extremely important. And I'm honored to be here as a senior transition specialist, which means that I specialize in helping seniors with the important task of, quite frankly, transitioning from a home of decades to discovering the next best situation. And that could be from moving into the next community or literally staying in place. I've worked with many people where I said, listen, from what I've heard so far, I think it's best that you stay in place. And there are things we can do, make simple changes to the home. For instance, something as simple as a grab bar or one of the bracelets around the neck that, help I fall and I can't get up, just so they can stand their help. But it really comes down to what they want to do. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of listening. The benefit of at least my approach, I appreciate that the people we're dealing with, we call a time of service with a smile. And, it's not a mobile dominated environment where text messages are passive for conversations and electric signatures are replaced with the ballpoint pen. I mean, I literally still read the newspaper, so I can relate to a lot of the situations.
They still print newspapers?
They sure do. I love my newspaper.
Kidding. I have a friend of mine. She gets the New York Times delivered to her every single morning. She's a former New Yorker, and does her best to read it on a daily basis. But yeah, the old time print papers are a challenge sometimes to come across. But yeah, so what actually does an SRES stand for? Because you have that designation, and I didn't know what it meant when I first saw your business card. I was like, what does this mean? And why is it important?
So it's a seniors real estate specialist. And sometimes it is confusing because senior people think, oh, he's higher up in the company. That's not it at all. It's seniors. I like to think of that sometimes, but it's seniors focused. So we're uniquely qualified to assist seniors in housing sales. And it's a designation you have that's awarded to realtors. So first of all, you have to take additional education, and it's to help seniors and their families with later in life real estate transactions. And quite frankly, to tell you the truth, the selling of the house is the easy part.
Really? Why is that?
Well, a lot of the families that I work with have lived in their homes for decades. So it's more than a home. It's literally part of the family. You've got the notches on the on the side of the hallway where, Johnny and Mary have grown up, and the heights. You have, the good,
Yep.
bad, and ugly. Some had, wedding receptions, all kinds of great activities, prom pictures, first school pictures, and everything in between. So it's literally part of the family. And that's an emotional toll. Plus you have, I myself, I've only been in this house for just under 2 decades, but I could do a complete emptying of the home, if you will. So that alone, so simply put, it's an overwhelming process. And my goal is to really downshift, if you will. Of course, I'm a realtor, and my ultimate goal is to sell the house. But the first step that I take is making sure that the people, whether it's a single person or a couple or a family, moves into first can age in place. Second, if they want to downsize, multi-generational family living is becoming a very big trend. Or if they want to move to a community, so like independent living, assisted living, depending on their stage in life and how much their facilities are still intact.
Yeah, and then you talk about the multi-generational living. New England's a little bit different from the rest of the country in the fact that there's 2 and 3 bedroom homes that, closer to the city, of course, that have, the 2 or 3 decker, right? That's the thing is, oh, we'll get a 2, 3 decker and we'll all live in the same building. But out in the suburbs, it's a little bit harder to find one of those locations where you've got the in-law suite already built into the home, or maybe even enough land to potentially build that in-law suite.
Right. Well, that's a great point. So you can be
I try to have a couple of those every month.
You can be extremely creative, but a lot of towns now are recognizing that there is a housing crisis, and there is where the baby boomers or the silent generation needs to, or might want to stay with the family a little longer than going into a community. What that means is that certain towns are allowing ADUs, accessory dwelling units, so you can literally add on to the home or put on a separate unit that could be used for family. Now, it's too much time to discuss each town's qualification process, but that is a wonderful option. And I do say moving into a community, because I can't tell you how many people say, I'm staying here till I'm toes up, Leon. But guess what? When they go into a facility, a community, excuse me, not a facility, it's a community. When they look at a community, they realize, oh my God, there's a piano player there. People are singing. There's arts and crafts. There's so many. We can go on a field trip. There are so many different things that they realize that they could become the belle of the ball at a center. So really, just getting back to what I do, it's my first job is to listen. Sit down, share a cup of coffee, have a conversation about your specific needs, desires, and all the concerns you have, because most people are, again, it is an overwhelming process. And that doesn't mean has to be scary. It's just that a lot of people go into sales. We'll just stick with that instead of saying a realtor, but salespeople can be hammers. Everyone else is a nail. I don't take it that respect, because there are a lot of times when I'll say, look, I suggest you stay at home. And guess what, though? I'm a trusted real estate resource. That is my ultimate goal. And that's my fiduciary responsibility, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's interesting the way you put that, because I look at what I do as a financial advisor as the same thing. I have one client who just retired a couple of years ago, and we were going through his financials and looking at what they were spending in retirement. And I told them, you've got a problem. You've got to spend more money. And he looked at me like I had 7 heads and said, wait, you're a financial advisor and you're telling me to spend more money. I said, yeah, you've got more money coming in because he had pensions and a retirement plan, and he and the 2 of them together both had Social Security, and they literally had more money coming in than they had going out. Their mortgage was going to end in another couple of years, so they were going to have even a non-drain on their income, and they had a few $100,000 in a retirement account that they don't even need to touch. And when they asked me, like, when do we touch our retirement account, I say, when you absolutely need money, but you've got $50,000 in cash, touch that first. Like, because as soon as you take money out of your retirement account, you got to pay taxes on it. And you don't need to pay taxes unless you absolutely have to. And they both looked at me like I was nuts. And they're like, wait, you're telling us to spend more money and that I'm like, or just figure out how you're going to leave it to your heirs, right? Because you're going to be in that set of circumstances where you're going to be okay. And the funniest part about it was they wound up sleeping better at night because they were just like, oh yeah, I'm going to be okay. And
Right.
that's, I think, what a good advisor does is at the end of when it's all said and done, they say, hey, look, what do you do? I like to help you to make a better choice so you can sleep better at night.
And with that said, too, is it really comes down to the ultimate customer, who's the senior. However, I like to get the family, whether it's children, siblings, someone else involved, at least copying somebody on an email, having them in at least the initial meetings, if not all the meetings, because having more sets of eyes and ears in this process just makes everybody feel more comfortable. I know, unfortunately, one of the reasons this was so interesting or exciting for me to get into is an unfortunate situation that my own father and my grandmother had some very interesting situations. My father was in Florida. My grandmother was not in Massachusetts either, but they had some difficult situations with realtors that I think, looking back, this was before I was in real estate, but I would have thought differently. It would have been different if I was involved, is what I'm trying to say. So, but again, it's up to the individual, but I love a team approach. It really makes it better for everybody.
And one of the things that I always, well, it makes me chuckle a little bit is when I talk to people and they say, oh, I'm going to leave the house with the kids. One of the kids want it. And you just chuckled, right? Because the reality is, if you think about it, most people, that are seniors are 70 plus, 65 plus, right? They think of their kids, quote unquote, air quotes on the radio, as being, 20 somethings. When the reality is most of these people are in their 40s or 50s or even 60s in some cases. They'll get a home already. They don't want mom and dad's home in 90+% of the time. It's just another thing that they've got to worry about.
Right.
So right. Do you encounter that as much as I think I do?
I have a recent situation that I just have a new home for sale, and the 3 children have a lot of love for mom, but she's moving into a community on next Tuesday, and they want nothing to do with the home. They all had great times, great memories, but everyone's coming over to pack up and ship on their merry way, right? So, and actually, that's a great point right there too. Is a lot of times, what is it that people say they take more time to plan for a vacation than they do for their financial future? I'm sure you see that all the time. The same comes true The same comes true at this stage of life. Again, because of the key word I keep coming back to is overwhelming. So if I can sit down with someone first, again, the first job is to listen, but to make the plans, to take the time, and just as how we met, we have a stable of partners who can assist in everything from decluttering, packing, financial service, estate planning, everything that comes before, during, and after the move, so that we really do provide a great service. And taking the time and having the patience to listen to what the ultimate needs are. This is not a fast sale. You can have multiple cups of coffee and learn everything about the family. Some people quite frankly, don't have the patience or can handle that, but it's actually a very rewarding process when you see the whole thing happen. And it's a joy to be able to provide the service.
All right. Well, I want to get back into the conversation there around some of the other services you provide, but we got to take a little bit break here. So we'll be right back. Are you fit to retire? I'm Chris Shea, financial advisor with BPS Financial Services in Marshfield. I work with clients to create a 100-day plan that can help get you started so that you can get the most out of your retirement. You've worked your whole life towards your goal of retirement. Let BPS Financial Services put together a plan that will help you enjoy your retirement. Find out how a 100-day plan tailored to you can help you get started in your retirement at
fit2retire.com/Chris-Shea or call 781-733-5996. That's 781-733-5996. And now for my fast red disclosure, as this has been compliance approved.
Chris Shea is a registered representative offering securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA/SIPC, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Located at 752 Ocean Street, Marshfield, Massachusetts, 02050.
That's 781-733-5996.
All right. Well, welcome back. Before we get to listen to a commercial about me, Leon, we were talking a little bit about the other services that you have in your back pocket when it comes to helping people with their move. And as I mentioned, with my family, after my mom passed away, I had 6 30-yard dumpsters of stuff that I cleaned out of the house pretty much by myself. I did get a little bit of help from people, but I didn't use any professional services because I didn't know what was good and what was bad. I had to kind of go through it all. What services do you provide around that? Getting the house ready for a sale, but more importantly, getting the people ready to pack all that up.
That's a very common scenario, the 6 dumpsters, maybe not 6, but let's just stick with that. So I'm actually going to write an article for a newspaper that has to do with decluttering. And one of the things, like I mentioned previous to the break, was if we sit down and plan ahead, whether it's for tomorrow or 10 years from now, it's thinking ahead. So you can take, with the holidays coming, if you don't get to it before this, you can give the holidays throughout the whole year. So you can go through the boxes and start giving away some of the things and actually watching people's true emotions as you hand them something that's you believe will be of value to them. And it's not, it's a wonderful treat. You get a double win-win. You're getting it out of your home, but you're also giving it to somebody who really would like to have that.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I can remember a couple of years ago, my dad died in 2016, and my dad was Santa Claus. He was 6'1", 300 pounds, big white belly, big white beard. He did Santa Claus for the Cardinal Cushing School here over in Hanover. Flew in a helicopter. He was known as Santa Claus in the Hanover area. One of my cousin's kids, he and my dad loved each other because of soccer. After my dad passed away, we gave him a couple of my dad's Santa Claus ties. Oh my God, you would have thought we'd given him $20 million because of the emotional attachment that he had to my father and the love that they had for one another, and the fact that he was going to have his Santa Claus ties that my father was known for. I kind of wish that my dad had been the one to give them to him before they passed away.
And that's exactly what I'm going to focus on with that report is just that thing, because that just brought back a memory. One of my best friend's wife's father passed away, and he knew I was a July 4th guy. He gave me the July 4th shirt and the July 4th tie that he proudly wore, and I love it. I wear it every year, and I think of him. So it let's face it, people are always would love to have a legacy behind them. Simple things like that bring happiness to everybody, and it's a super treat, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's not always the big thing, but it's the connection thing.
Yes.
Right. Like my mom's house, she moved into it when I was a senior in high school. That has zero emotional attachment for me. Had zero emotion. Like when I was ready to sell it, I couldn't move it fast enough because it didn't matter to me. Right. I had learned long ago that my memories of my parents were not tied to that location. They were tied to other things that we did. Right. And like I said, my dad was Santa Claus. And so Christmas was always a big deal. We actually have a Christmas tree that we found in their house. And again, this is why we went through their house, or I went through their house so detailed. I found a Christmas tree that my my Nana had made a ceramic Christmas tree for each one of the 6 kids. My dad was and siblings. I think there's like 3 left out of the 6. And that treasure, like I keep it and we're getting it ready to put up for Christmas this year, me and my daughter. I plan on giving it to her because, is it the best Christmas tree ever? Absolutely not. Right. But my Nana made it in a ceramic shop back in the 1970s or 80s or whatever. And it's one of those family heirlooms that hopefully will last. It's still in the dang box from 50 years ago.
Love it. Those are so special. We have one of those from my wife's great grandmother. It's I get it. That's makes a lot of sense.
And by the way, like I said, we threw away 6 dumpsters for the stuff, but there were like a few things that we kept. But it wasn't a lot of the stuff. It was pictures that we kept. And now we're going to digitize all of them. That's the other thing. Do you help with any of that change of physical stuff to the digital world now?
It's honestly, it depends how involved they want us to get, because there's a fine line between some people want privacy and some people are like, help me, just help me, please. And a lot of times, as great as families are, a lot of times children live out of state and they just can't do certain things, and they can't be as much of a help as they'd like. So that is actually a great service that we provide, and it's a wonderful. It really is more rewarding for me, to be honest with you, to be able to help them. But just jumping back to that, it's not a cookie cutter process. So everyone has a unique situation, and you mentioned the process of getting the house ready. There are 3 stages usually that I say. That the first stage is just sell it as is. I want out. The second stage could be more of cleaning it out, making small modifications. And the third stage, there are ways we have something called Compass Concierge, where we can literally provide an interest-free loan and make some major changes to the home to get the most value, stage it, the whole shebang. And it really depends on timing, desire, and what people have the stomach for. And then to your point, the financial situation, what are they really in need for? What we find too sometimes, that better than me, is that the seniors have a lot of equity, so sometimes they don't necessarily need the highest price. Now, my goal is to get them the highest price, but they don't necessarily need the highest price all the time. They just want to make their life better. So again, it really goes back to that whole listening piece and finding out what makes the most sense. But then that's where the family or friend involvement becomes a little bit helpful to me too, to make sure that everyone knows that I have their best interest, even though we do have fiduciary responsibilities, the 2 of us.
Yeah, and then but it is, I think you touched on a little bit. It's scary for people to change someplace. You said you've been in your house for 20 years. Can you imagine moving?
No, I can't. Have to call a dumpster company.
Right, and I know that my mom had been in the house since 1989, so it was like 30 plus years. She couldn't imagine moving, even though it was a 2,500 square foot house, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. She lived upstairs in her bedroom. The kitchen was downstairs. She hadn't used the kitchen in 3 or 4 years because she just didn't cook, because it was just herself by living alone after my father had passed. So it was eating out and having leftovers and just microwaving things. And I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that wasn't really the best life. Right? I mean, she when she got out, it was great. But being in that monster house, must have. I can only imagine the echoes of her husband, because they'd been married for 49 years and 50 weeks before he passed away. Right? I mean, literally like 2 weeks shy of 50-year anniversary.
Well, we could do an entire show on this next thing I'm going to talk about, and that's a sad situation. That loneliness is really one of the biggest negatives of seniors growing alone, even though they might have friends and things going on, when they come into an empty house, it gets it's lonely, and there's a lot of things that get involved with that as well.
Yeah. I know that I've seen it, and I have friends that, and when I talk to people about, what I do with some of the retirement planning, I tell people like the 4 areas that are more important than your finances are self-identity, social, health, nutrition, personal relationships, and the money just pays for that. But
Right.
personal relationships are one of them, and social is the other one, which means you've got to have in personal relationships are like your significant others, your kids, your grandkids, your best friends, and then social is getting out and enjoying the world around you, because that's just crucial to living a life. And we found that out in the pandemic a little bit. And you're right, we could talk about that for probably about another hour or so, but we are coming up on time here a little bit. But I do want to give you the opportunity to tell people a little bit about, how to get in touch with you, what services you can provide, in case anyone does want to, explore this possibility of should they stay or should they go and get your assistance.
Right. Well, thank you for this opportunity. So there are 2 of the best ways to get in touch would be if you like email, it's leon@listingwithleon.com, which is all one word. And my cell phone, you could either call, or my 82-year-old mother said, I want to text you, don't call me. I couldn't believe it. But the cell phone is 781-258-7418. That's 781-258-7418. So the services that I offer is, the first thing I would suggest is literally sit down, have a cup of coffee. And there's a zero pressure with this approach. We'll take the time needed to listen, advise, so you're comfortable and confident in your choices. And literally, I have advised people not to sell more than I've had you could shake a stick at. People have said to me, Leon, you're in sales. How come you're telling me not to sell? Well, because I don't feel right now it's the right time. But here's what we need to do that will make it better for you. So let's share a cup of coffee, get to know each other, build a relationship, and I can learn more about you folks. You can learn more about me. And I have a great brochure I can leave you, which gives you all the steps and the processes and all the services that I have. Or I can mail that to you if you do get in touch with me.
Yeah, and he doesn't bite. He's very personable, and we have had a cup of coffee together, and it was a fun conversation. We did it when the weather was nicer, so it was outside, but you can still get together and enjoy a little bit of a chat. So thank you for your time, Leon, for being here. I hope that people listening on this Sunday morning, I know it's a holiday season and people are probably out running around shopping. Hopefully this was a little bit entertaining and maybe a little bit informative. And it is Sunday, so it's on to the car guy. So again, thank you, Leon, for your time.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. I done said the right thing, but it must have used the wrong line. I've been on the right trip, but I must have used the wrong car. Head is in a bad place, and I wonder what's good for. I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. My head is in a bad place, but I'm having such a good time. I've been running, trying to get hung up in my mind. Just got to give myself a good talking to this time. Just need a little brain salad surgery. I got to cure my insecurity. I've been in the wrong place, but it must have been the right time. I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong song. I've been in the right vein, but it seems like a wrong